Hi guys, I'm Karen Rice. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This particular video is of some wildflowers on the hillside with a bit of a pale, calming sky. I'm using lots and lots of techniques to inspire you, and if you've got any questions or comments, please put them in the comments section below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. So without any further ado, let's get on with it. So here's my beautiful reference photo that you can get from pexels.com, and I'll put a link in the description below. Here are all my wonderful materials. Again, I'll put a list in the description below. So I'll be using masking fluid, a spritzer bottle, a pipette, and I've taped around the outside of my paper. So let's get going. So I'm using Pebeo masking pen. So I'm just masking out all the little flowers, the pink flowers, for later. So once your masking fluid is dry, you can wet your paper. And I'm just wetting all around the top area here to paint the sky. And for the sky, I've mixed up some Wisteria and a little bit of Paynes grey. I'm doing the sky very, very pale, wet in wet. So I'm just mixing up some permanent magenta now for the flowers. You can use any pink, and some light greens, some yellows and blues. So just mixing up those, adding a little bit more grey to that. I want these colours to be quite toned down. So I'm wetting the paper in the area that I'm going to paint wet in wet with these colours. So starting off with this very grey green, beautiful watery soft colour in the left area of the painting there, and just adding a little bit more of a yellowy green wet in wet, doing it on the right hand side corner here, just putting in a little bit of paint wet in wet, just putting it all around the edges. You can see it's lovely granulation just up on the top left there. Now I'm putting in the pink. Just obviously the masking fluid is protecting the lighter areas, but I just want to put this broad area of pink with some of the watery green now, letting all those colours mix in together. So my paper is very wet, but now I'm actually putting in some creamier, darker green, sort of damp paint into wet paint. And I'm just putting that in areas, and I'm going to give it a little tilt just to get all those colours blending together. You get some lovely textures here as well. It's beautiful. Letting it all run down here. Don't be afraid to tilt. It's a great technique in watercolour painting. One of the questions I get asked is about how wet my paper is, etc. My paper's very wet at the moment, so now I'm making creamy paint and I'm putting this into wet paint, so I've got a little bit more control. So I'm working damp into wet now, so that this paint doesn't spread too much. If it was wet in wet, it would spread more. This damp paint stays put a little bit more. It is one of the most useful techniques in watercolour, so please take note and practice it, because you really do feel then you're getting some sort of control with your watercolour painting. So I'm continuing putting this dark paint here and there. Remember, it's damp. So now I'm mixing up a very sort of dark greenish grey for the mountains. So just making sure it's quite creamy, and I'm putting some puddles of water in that area. And now I'm dropping this creamy paint into very wet water, if that doesn't sound too strange enough for you. But make sure there's some puddles on here and you get some beautiful, interesting effects. As you can see, there's a great big puddle there, and look what the paint's done. It kind of dilutes the paint in that area. Now, I've got no control here. I'm absolutely having fun though, so just have fun with it. Don't worry about this sort of style of painting, because it's just great practice. I'm just putting a yellowy green in there now, and then sort of putting in this greenish paint into the Paynes grey. Just having fun with the colour. Remember, the paint's quite creamy. Don't make it too watery, or else those mountains are going to look too pale. I'm just going to tilt this now. Obviously it's very wet, so I've just got my tissue on standby, and I'm hoping to get some lovely creative textures. Now here's is a really interesting technique. Not only am I so wet at the moment, now I'm actually going to put more water in with this pipette, which I find really exciting because it creates lots of backgrounds. All the things you're not supposed to do with watercolour, I'm doing them. But in nature, you get all these textures, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. And look at that. Isn't it delicious? The way the water and the paint's running down. It's just marvellous. It's so exciting. It's out of control, but it's exciting. So now I'm going to be doing a little bit of spattering, so it's creamy paint onto the wet surface. Make sure that you sort of cover areas that you don't want the spattering to go on. So I'm using my hand because obviously this area is quite wet. So if you put a bit of kitchen towel there, it's just going to take the paint off. I'm going to give this a little spray because I wasn't quite sure of that last spatter. Now I'm adding some salt, and as you can see, the salt has dried. What a lovely texture it's created on the right. Now I'm going to remove my masking fluid, make sure the painting is dry. I'm using masking tape. I wanted to show you the masking fluid that comes off on the tape, so it saves all that mess. So I'm mixing up a little bit of pink now with permanent magenta, and I'm going to paint these flowers wet on dry. So I've mixed up some creamier paint, same colour, and I'm just putting this in damp into wet just to create some darks. So I'm just mixing up some greens now. I want to paint some of the sort of stems and leaves and sort of textures in the green area. I'm painting this wet on dry, using my little pointed sable brush. Lots of little stippling and marks and things like that. Try to free up in this area because you can just go a little bit mad. As you see from the reference photo, it's all lots of yummy texture in there. So you can just put lots of these greens in and try to vary the colour as well. I'm now going to spatter some dark green. Yes, it's on top of the pink flowers, but some leaves would cover them, so it just creates that whole natural look. Just to say, you don't have to spatter, you can carry on using the brush technique, putting the paint on. I just love to have a little spatter. Because it's getting near the sky area, I put some kitchen towel there so no spotty marks go in my scar. I'm still using the permanent magenta, and I'm just varying now the colours. I put some spattering some light green, as you can see, some orange there, just to show some other wild flowers. So I've just forwarded on the film here. You can see I've done a lot of spattering, and now I'm going back in with a brush again just to put in some more darks. The paint is still slightly wet, but this dark is quite creamy, so it shouldn't run too much. So I'm using my spritzer bottle again just to get rid of some of these little spattering marks, not necessarily because I don't like them, I just want to create even more texture. So I'm mixing up a lovely creamy sort of violety grey, so it's Paynes grey with some of that permanent rose, or any pink will do. I'm wetting the area. You can see my mountain has dried, but I'm wetting it again, so I'm painting wet into wet. So I'm dripping in this sort of purpley greyish colour and letting it run down into that wet watery sort of area that I've painted. And just let the paint flow. It's just so lovely that happens. Just soften that edge there, just to let it flow. So I'm just going to tilt that now because it's a little bit harsh. Just tilting it to the left just to soften that a little. I think I'll leave it now. I'm going to take off the framing tape so it gives me a lovely white border, just to see if I need to do any more work. And I feel I need to put some stems in this right hand corner. It's the foreground, just to give a little bit more detail. The paper is dry, so I can get some sort of nice clarity in these stems. So I hope you enjoyed that video. It's a nice sort of landscape sort of stroke flowers, so it's got a bit of everything. It's got all the techniques you could name under the sun. Actually, I probably did get a bit carried away, but sometimes it's worth it. It's just good fun, and I like to have fun when I'm painting. And, you know, on the whole, I'm quite pleased with this picture. I love the moody sort of mountains in the background and the palish sky. I thought worked quite well. I love doing all the texture and techniques here with the flowers. They always work well with watercolour when you're spattering, using salt and spraying and all those delicious, yummy techniques that are out there in watercolour painting. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments section below. Happy painting. Bye for now.